Well, guys, after 2 years and many various theories, one of the best shows on TV has finally returned as it explores a new phase that changes the show forever as we know it.
We got it all on UHN. Take off your sneakers.
Hey guys, it's Kevin again, my review for the season premiere of Westworld, Season 3, Episode 1, Parce Domine, and holy shit was I excited for this premiere. I have to say, even though I hate the fact that I waited so long to watch Season 2, the only good thing about it is that I did not have to wait that long to see how everything was going to be resolved. I know, I did not have to wait that long to see how that incredibly game-changing cliffhanger and all that stuff that went down in the finale, I only had to wait like a few hours to see how that really was resolved. So that's the only benefit here, and I really don't know how you guys were able to wait as long as you were, just considering what that really was implying. And I have to say that I really loved this premiere overall. It's pretty clear that Westworld is still the same show that we know it as, but it really is trying to do something a lot different. And I think it changing locations and, exploring the human world a little bit more, I think overall is going to be one of the best decisions they ever made. Not just because it keeps the show fresh, but just what it's trying to do. I am absolutely all for it, and I really loved what we are seeing in this episode. And if this is any indication of what the show is going to be moving forward, I am definitely all for it, but we're just getting into it right now. So obviously, I think the first thing that I really do want to talk about is really the big reveal at the end of the episode, because I'm going to get into like the Dolores and the Caleb of it all in a little bit, but I'm going to get into some of the smaller stuff first, because the way this episode is divided. So, Maeve is a character that we knew we were going to be seeing, we were still going to be seeing this season, but considering the way things end in Season 2, I knew there was going to be something really different, because obviously the whole story of her and her daughter has very much wrapped up, and similar to a lot of things in the show, Maeve is clearly going in a much different direction. And the ending of the episode, we see her wake up in what looks like sort of like a World War II-esque setting. So what I'm thinking is Delos is realizing that their narrative is not working anymore. What they've wanted Westworld to be, it's just not going to happen, because the hosts are revolting and things like that. They're not having it anymore. So they need to change it up. And what they've done is, remember what Hale originally said, or what we thought was Hale originally said to Felix and Lutz, is to take the hosts that they think, were, the hosts that they think were most likely to, that needed to be saved, and find a way to, change their narrative. And I think that's exactly what's going on with Maeve here. I think that Felix and Lutz very much wanted to save her, but they put her into a new story, and I'm excited to see more of what's going to unfold here. What's this world? What's going to happen here? What's the scope of it all? Who is really behind everything? Because we really don't know what's going on with Delos at this point, especially from what we find out in this episode. So I'm really excited to see what's going on there. And I like that we do still have, Westworld as a part of the show. It's not all just in, the real world now. We do still have a part of the show that is still in there, because you need that. You need to have that in there, because it's just not Westworld without it. So I like that we do still have Maeve, in Westworld in some capacity. I'm excited to see how that all does turn out, and I really do like the way that was handled here. I think there was a really good, brief sort of moment overall, and I'm excited to see where that really does go. All right, so getting into the Dolores of it all, there is a lot to really talk about here. Obviously, the two big storylines we have going on this episode, besides the stuff with Bernard, which I'm going to get into, is everything going on with Dolores and also this new character, Caleb. obviously, I want to talk about the Dolores stuff first. However, both storylines are basically paralleled in this episode. As we know, Dolores is pretty much gone completely rogue at this point. She was able to execute her plan. She was able to get out of the Westworld, and now she's in the real world. And we see that she is not wasting any time here. She is first going after the people that have wronged her, which I was fine with, but I also was hoping that's not all that she was doing, because that's similar to what she was doing in the second season, where she was basically just going after everyone in Delos that, you know, ever wronged her, and get her way. But I do really like that first scene where she goes to this guy's house that used to be a shareholder of Delos to basically get his permission to, like, you know, sign for this company that she's trying to infiltrate and things like that. Is such a great scene because, again, like I said in my season 2 review, Dolores could be really unlikable if they wanted to make her that way, but Wood portrays it in such a way where you can understand her. Yes, she is going to some drastic measures. Does she have to torture this guy and his wife? I mean, no, but obviously, you know, they did some fucked up shit to her, and this is definitely getting to her. This is definitely something that she remembers. We understand why she has to do some of the things that she does because of the trauma that she endured. This is finally her fighting back, and no one is really stopping her at this point. Well, except for Bernard, but trust me, we'll get to that in a little bit. But nobody really is stopping her from doing this, so she feels like she just can. And I do think Dolores is eventually going to get to a point where she's not as on top of things. I do think that's going to happen very soon. Maybe not this season, but I do think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. But as it is right now, I like the fact that Dolores is doing these things, that she just has such a clear idea of what she's doing. Things are going her way for the most part, and I like the way, you know, the rest of this episode, we focused on here. Most of this episode revolves around Dolores and her getting some information about this new group that has developed, known as Insight. It's this group basically that's out there that is essentially the equivalent of Delos. And I really like getting to see this because apart from like Williams flash forwards and some brief things like that, we haven't really gotten to see a lot of the world in Westworld, and we forget that it is in a futuristic world in 2051, and things in this world, what we see here, are honestly not too different from what our world could become one day. I thought they did a really good job at showing like this could very much happen, where you can see this company. Basically, what they've done is they've accumulated all this. It's basically what they've done with the hosts in The Forge in season 2. You know, that whole thing we saw with Logan. That's what they've done in the real world. Everyone is on surveillance. They have found a way to just collect all this data on so many humans, and it's honestly really kind of scary the way they've done it. The way that they are, you know, technology is completely dominating the world in that way. And Dolores, obviously, considering that she's had an experience with this, she really wants to get to the bottom of this. She really wants to know more of what's going on here. And I love the measures that she took here, the way that she tracked down this guy, Liam, and you think that he's going to be the key to all of this. And I thought John Gallagher Jr. played this up so well, because you could tell, you think right away that he's going to be like a Logan or a William or something like that, where he's going to be, you know, someone that's very astute, very intelligent, someone that has a lot of knowledge about what's going on with this company. But you eventually find out that this guy is basically useless. The only reason he knows some of this information is because he is the son of the co-founder, but of course his father is deceased, and his father never really shared the codes with him and things like that. So Dolores, unfortunately, does not get what she wants in this episode, and I like that we don't know a lot about this company, a lot, and Rebomb and things like that. This AI that's out there is really intriguing. I really love the way they're setting that up, I have to say, and I do like that the head of security actually realized her deception, realized, that she wasn't on their side and things like that. And I thought that was definitely a great moment because you knew Dolores was obviously going to get out of that, and the way she was able to make a host out of this guy, it really just shows how Dolores is like one step ahead of everyone. She is taking that printer that Ford had to her absolute advantage, but I don't think that it is making her like completely like overpowered either. Like it's making her overpowered to the point where she's like, invincible or something like that. I think what's happening is that Dolores thinks that she's at that point, like everything's going to go her way. I could very much see things crashing down for her. I could definitely see that happening to Dolores this season, and I like that she's in a place where, she's a badass, and, the way that she takes out all those guys and, like, kills all his men when she wakes up, and then she ends up taking that car. I mean, such a great moment. I love the way that was done, and I'm very excited to see more of where that storyline ends up going overall. And so that stuff, I think, is really well done, and they do a really good job of setting up, and they've done a great job throughout the whole show of how technology has interfered with Dolores' life. Every single choice that she's made has been just what the narrative has told her to do, so now she can finally break free in that way. But they also do an excellent job of showing that parallel with the new character of Caleb, who is played brilliantly by Aaron Paul, as always, who I just thought did a magnificent job in this episode and just really shows how great of an actor is, because Caleb as a character does not have a lot of dialogue in this episode. A lot of it is off screen, so he really conveys through his emotion just how disgruntled he is at the world. He is someone who is a former military veteran. He was in the war and things like that, and he's at a point in his life where he just is feeling very unsatisfied, and, he can't really amount to much of anything else in the world besides being a construction worker with this robot sidekick that he's just really fed up by. But he's also constantly haunted by the memory of his friend who was in the war with him, Francis, that died, and you can see how this has really affected him and things like that. And in a world that is so dominated by technology, Caleb is the one guy that is not happy with this. He wants to be able to make his own choices. He wants something real. He wants something tangible. And he also knows, though, that what he's doing is not going to get him much of anywhere. So he is taking some drastic measures through this app Rico, which essentially is like Uber, but for criminals. And he already knows he's in very dangerous territory. He doesn't like what he's doing, and I really love the way they played out stuff with Caleb in this episode, just showing how repetitive his life is and how he almost feels like he's on a loop. And I don't think they're trying to mislead us and think that Caleb is a host. I don't think that's where this is going at all, because Caleb represents an aspect of human life in the show that we just haven't seen before. So, so many human characters in the show, they felt like they're in a position of power. They felt dominant in that way. Even characters like William, I mean, he thrived on terrorizing the hosts for a while. That was his true purpose, he thought. Caleb, on the other hand, is not like that. This is a good guy. This is not someone that likes the idea of technology. He wants to revert away from it. He wants to be able to make his own choices, and he wants something that is real in his life. And I think they did a really good job with that. And it makes sense why, at the end of the episode, he is the one that ends up saving Dolores, because he's going to be almost a kindred spirit to her, in the same way that Dolores wanted to break free and wanted to live her own life. That's exactly what Caleb wants to do. These are two people who have been controlled by technology. And even in that scene with Francis where, Caleb is annoyed because the Francis on his AI does not sound like the Francis that he knew, you can see how much this is bothering him. It also is kind of scary that, like, they literally have AIs of, like, real people. Like, just imagine getting to that point. That's something that we know Ford did in Delos, where, like, he literally downloaded his consciousness, so it was just always there. And that's something that Insight, this company, is also trying to do. And with the help of Rhea Bomb and things like that, this is really going to help them get there. But I really like what they did with Caleb. But I do have to say, Caleb, the way they presented his story is actually my one main flaw with this episode, because I do think the show did a really good job, like I said, of setting up who Caleb is, the struggle that he's endured. But I do feel that the way it was told felt a little bit rushed to me. I actually would have preferred if we got to see some flashbacks of Kate, and maybe they will in other parts of the season. Maybe they will do that. But I really wish we got to see more of him and Francis, just to see the contrast between the Francis that he knew, but then also the Francis that, is on this AI. And I 100% believe that they made this decision because this is Aaron Paul. They know that he's a great actor. They want to use him as much as they possibly can, so they want him to have that big scene. And he did do an excellent job in that scene. I just feel it would have been just ever slightly more effective if we would have gotten to see flashbacks of Caleb's time in the war. And again, maybe we're going to see that later in the season, but I just wish we could have seen more of that. Also, his relationship with his mother is not really touched upon at all, other than the fact that she clearly suffers from dementia, and they don't really have much of a relationship there. So I hope they're able to dive into that a little bit more, but everything else they did with him I thought was really well done. Again, I love the parallels between him and Dolores, and I'm really excited to see more of their relationship. I feel like that's going to be the big highlight of the season, because Dolores pretty much believes that almost every single human to her is the same. They're dangerous, they are careless, they are selfish in that way. She is not someone that wants to ally with humans. She thinks the worst of them. Caleb, though, I think is exactly the kind of person that Dolores is going to need right now. I think it's going to give her a little bit more faith in humanity and things like that. I think she's going to feel more towards Caleb, and I think Caleb is going to feel more towards Dolores, because technically she is technology, and he's going to, it's going to restore his faith in technology, and it's going to restore Dolores's faith in humanity. And I think these two together, they're going to start this uprising. They're going to try to change things. They're going to go after this company, and I'm just excited to see how that whole thing goes down, because I think there's a lot of potential in this character for sure, and I really love what they did do with Caleb overall, and I really love the parallel that we are setting up here. So the only other stuff to talk about, of course, is everything going on with Bernard, but also the mysterious Hale, the mysterious Hale sort of host that we now have, which I think I'm going to talk about that first, because I have a lot of theories about this host. I mean, it's pretty clear that this is obviously not the Hale that we knew. Obviously, Dolores just took her body and has put another host in there. Now, the obvious answer could be Teddy, but I really don't think that it is, because we already know that Teddy was able to basically come to peace with himself. He literally went to, host heaven. So I don't think that it's Teddy in there, but I do think that this host is not under Dolores's control. I think this host is very much self-sufficient in that way, especially the scene we get with this host version of Hale, where it's, she essentially, because of what happened at Delos, they are thinking about possibly just privatizing the whole park, but she does not want that. She knows very well that this should be, the host should be able to still stay there. This should be a safe haven for them. They should be able to still reside in Westworld, and I'm excited to see what she's got up her sleeve, because obviously, we know that Delos is still very much a part of this, and Delos is not looked at very fondly now. People aren't taking them seriously, There's that brief mention with John Gallagher Jr.'s character where he's kind of just, scoffing at them for what they did, but it's interesting because Insight is basically Delos at this point. They're trying to become the next Delos, so it's kind of funny how they're kind of scoffing at them for something that they are very much doing. They are ridiculing them for that. that when that's exactly what they're doing. I think that's very fascinating overall, and so I'm excited to see where that really goes. But the larger question is, where is Bernard? He has very much gone into hiding at this point, and everyone's pretty much looking for him. So he's under a different name right now, kind of in this, on this like farmland of sorts, and he's just like a basic factory worker, but you can see that his cover is already being blown because this manhunt is now going on for, going on for him. And I was a little bit upset at first. I didn't like that right off the bat he's been caught. I don't like that that's what's going on, that, you know, his workers already know who he is. But the way the episode ends, where not only is he gearing up to find Dolores, who we find out he has not had any contact with in over 90 days, because this has taken place like 3 weeks later. So I think that's very interesting. But his plan is to essentially gain allies because he knows he can't take on Dolores alone. So what is he going to do? His best bet is to go back to Westworld, and we see in the promo for this season that he is going to end up teaming up with Maeve, and that team up is going to be so juicy. We have not really seen these two had much interaction, just those two on their own ever, and so I'm really excited to see how that goes, but I also like that they're really heating things up for the feud between these two. I like the way they're setting that whole sort of battle up, and I don't think it's going to happen till the end of the season. I don't think we're going to see Bernard and Dolores confront each other until then, which I'm fine with because I like this personal story that's developing between Dolores and Caleb. I like where they're going with that overall. So I don't really have a problem with the fact that they are clearly taking their time with that. What I thought was them being really fast-paced, I'm glad to see they are taking their time with that overall. And the other thing I will say about this episode is that this is probably the most straightforward premiere we've gotten of Westworld so far, which I think was a good thing because even though I really love season 2, I know that premiere was very alienating for some people because of how confusing it was. So I like that we're going into this season with not as many questions. Our main questions are, you know, what is the deal with Insight? What is their actual plan here? And what does Dolores hope to get out of this company overall? And, of course, who is Hale? Who is this host, actually? And I feel like we're going to find that out really soon because we see scenes in the promo for Season 3 of, like, Dolores instructing this host on, like, what to do. So I think we're actually going to get that answer way sooner than later. And, of course, everything going on with the Man in Black, who they didn't show at all in this episode. And I think that's interesting that we didn't even see what's going on with William there. I don't think we're going to see that until much later. I think the whole thing with him and the host that looks like Emily, I think that's going to be a little while. I think we still got a little whiles to go there. So I think we're going to have to wait a little bit for that. But I am excited to see what they end up doing with him because he is still a main character. And again, I've said it before, I like the fact that there's not as many characters. I like the fact we're able to focus more on some of them. And I'm excited to see where they really do end up going there. The directing in this episode, though, I have to say, I thought was pretty great because they did a really good job of retaining the tone that we expect from this show, but also giving it a sort of Blade Runner sort of feel. I mean, it's much more grimy. It's much more a lot of dark, a lot of silvers and things like that. And you really do feel that throughout this episode. This feels very different in that way, but it also does feel a bit familiar. And so I think they did a good job of rebranding the show, but not changing it entirely to the point where it's unrecognizable. I thought they did a pretty good job with that overall, and the writing in this episode was just so well done. Like I said, I love the way they set up the parallel between Dolores and Caleb. I love where those characters are going. The stuff with Maeve and Bernard, just really great writing overall. And what they're saying about technology this season, I think is different from what they've been saying throughout the entire show. Because yes, we've had the theme of these, you know, how people are abused by society and they're told that, you know, this is all they can amount to. But now we're seeing that really with someone like Caleb, who, he can't be who he wants to be. But we also see how technology is, people are getting overzealous with what they're doing. They see this opportunity and they're just going full force with it. And it's kind of scary. It kind of makes you wonder if like this could possibly happen to us one day. I don't know if it will, but hey, I mean, look at where technology is right now. It could very much happen. I'm not at all saying that technology is a bad thing. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I think this episode does make a case for how invasive that can become and how people can take a tool that is meant for one purpose and just make it completely dominate everyone's lives and just completely take it over. And I'm excited. I like what they are saying about that overall. I think there's a lot of really great, there's a lot of great social commentary about insight, and they're providing insight about insight. And that is not the first time you're going to hear me make that pun this season because, well, it's like they named the company that just for us to do that, just for us to say that they're providing insight at insight. Like, I feel like they just made the name just for me to call it that. Yeah, really excellent writing throughout this entire episode. I love the way they slowly revealed things here. But again, they didn't try to bombard you with like a bunch of things. And I think this was a much stronger premiere than that of Season 2. Season 2's premiere was really good, but this, I think, did a better job of just summing up what the season is going to be. And I definitely really did enjoy that. And then the cinematography of this episode was absolutely incredible. Like I said, the way they trade the very glossy and very cinematic sort of Western feel and traded for a far more realistic, futuristic looking city, I thought was really well done. They perfectly got you into that tone. They perfectly captured just what the more grimy sort of feel of it all. And I've really loved the cinematography in this episode. And the score even is a little bit different too. I mean, yes, you do still have, I can't pronounce his name, but Raim, whatever his name is, he's still doing the score for this show, obviously, but it has a bit more of like a techno feel to it. It was really cool the way they did that, especially with Caleb scenes. I really love the way that was done. It just shows like, yes, there's a lot that they are retaining, but they're also trying to keep it fresh. They're trying to keep it exciting, and I think that's what really is working for this show right now. I really love that. I also really love the editing style of this episode, the way it would constantly fade out. Every single scene would cut to black in that way, which I think is really to symbolize how Caleb's life is very much on loop. Like, it ends and then it starts up again. I thought that was really cool, the way they went about it. Like I said, it's a lot of just show not tell. Like, that's my main issue, is that a lot of what we're hearing from Caleb is very effective, and I do like the brief glimpses that we get. I just wish they were peppered more throughout this episode, and I think they could have done an even better job with that scene. That scene could have hit home even more if they would have done that. But again, they handled it in such a way where you were able to understand how this is affecting Caleb, the relationship he had with Francis, and how this AI is so different from him. I think they overall did a pretty good job with that. Other than that, guys, this was a damn good premiere. It did a really great job of getting us back into the show that we love, but also introducing a new phase, venturing us outside the park, showing us more of what the real world is like, and also just opening us up to this new narrative, showing how similar Caleb and Dolores are, but also doing a great job of setting up the incoming, battle between Dolores and Bernard. I just really love the way they are setting things up here. I think they definitely are doing a really good job with that this season, and overall I'm just really confident for where they're going to take this show moving forward. I'm excited to see where things do go for the rest of the show, and I like the fact that they are changing things up. And like I said, I love that Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy are always challenging themselves. They're never writing anything safe. They're never doing anything that's easy. And even though this premiere was more straightforward, it still isn't easy because you have to try to, find a way to subtly transition us into this this phase of the show, and I think they did a really good job with it overall. And like I said, aside from that one flaw I have, this was a really great premiere. So I'm definitely going to give the season premiere of Westworld, Season 3, Episode 1, Pars Domine overall in A-. But overall, guys, in my review, the season premiere of Westworld, let me know what you guys saw this episode overall, left your thoughts on it. Like I said, guys, moving forward, I'm going to be reviewing every single episode of Westworld this season individually because I just can't not. This is a show that I love to dissect. I love to get into all these characters that are so rich and complex, and especially what they're doing this season. I'm a big fan of for sure. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.